Those who do not learn from history are destined to repeat it. Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, lead, and inspire. And I want to take those words from our recent president, Mr. Trump, and use them against him, for him. One of my mentors taught me that when you're working with people and you hear what they want, when they're telling you their dreams, always put them back in their face to get them motivated to do the right thing, to move them forward. And this is true in business. It also happens to be true in the very present context of the scenario that we find ourselves today. Now, one of the things that our current president likes to do, and he's done it on more than one occasion, is to compare himself to Abraham Lincoln. Well, let's see. No, when I think of Abraham Lincoln, Donald Trump is not the first person that comes to my mind. I must be honest with you on that. And one of the reasons why is because what Mr. Lincoln is most noted for, in my very humble opinion as a former American history teacher, is that he tried to put the Union together. His major purpose was preservation of the Union, of uniting people as one. And his most famous speech, that perhaps one of the most famous speeches ever written, was the Gettysburg Address, and he was not the featured speaker at that ceremony where they were dedicating that a cemetery to those who died at Gettysburg, both North and South. And the major speaker spoke for 2 hours. Lincoln spoke for roughly 2 minutes. And the guy that was the major speaker said, you know, I wish I would have been able to say in my 2 hours what you effectively said in 2 minutes. And if we take a look and listen at that speech, maybe we can see some of the things where maybe the comparison to Lincoln is not quite as accurate as it could be. And I'm quoting, and this is from the Gettysburg Address, of course. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here today, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Unquote. Now, let's take a look at what they weren't necessarily, George Floyd wasn't necessarily planning to become the name that the movement just takes under its belt and moves forward with. However, that's what happened, and George Floyd's name was not the only one. The point is, we are at a moment. We are at a moment, and it's critical that the people in charge recognize that moment and not ignore the moment. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. The people are speaking. The people have spoken. Normally, what we expect of our leaders is for them to take a look at the main picture and help us move forward. Well, here we have a movement that's coming from the ground up, And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. That's what a democracy is designed to do. So, please, Lincoln, you ain't. Let's stop comparing ourselves to someone whose major thrust was preservation of the Union and not the division of its people one against the other. Trying to bring people together is the chief job of a leader. Trying to bring people together in time of a crisis, and doing so is the sign of a great leader, of getting things done. We've seen it so many times in our history. Roosevelt during the Depression, as one example. So let's bring the people together. Let's listen to the people. The people have spoken. And because we will never end a rant on a philosophical note, let's all get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.